This is one of historical buildings of St. Petersburg, the famous New Mikhailovsky Palace, built in the second half of the 19th century by architect Andrei Stackenschneider, on the order of Emperor Nikolai I for the wedding of his son, the great Prince Mikhail Nikolaevich. Starting in the second half of the last 20th century, the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts of the Russian Academy of Sciences has been located here. Its collection holds over 115,000 unique manuscripts and essays in the 65 languages. Right now, I am looking forward to meeting any minute now the director of the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor Popova Irina Fedorovna. Hello. Hello. Our collection, the collection of the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts, is the largest in Russian in terms of volume and the most significant in its scientific value. There are only 2 or 3 such collections in the world. We are on the same level as the collection of the British Museum in London and with the collection of the National Library in France. The collection of Eastern manuscripts in Russia began to be formed back in the early 18th century, even before the Academy of Sciences was founded on the order of Peter the Great. Russian society showed a genuine interest not only in the mysterious exoticism of the East, but also in its state, legislation, poetry and literature. This collection was created by people truly enchanted by the East. These were state officials whose occupations brought them to the East, where they were assigned for service, as well as travelers who also went to research the vast spaces of Central and the rest of Asia. These were the same scientists who eventually acquired these manuscripts and old books which they studied. They bought them simply because they were interested themselves. This is an entirely unique complex, including Eastern studies, specialist works on handwritten Eastern culture, which has been meticulously assembled throughout many generations. What was first known as the Asian Museum was founded in St. Petersburg in November 1818. It served as a special fund for storing Eastern manuscripts and coins, which afterwards merged into the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts with the entirety of its collections. The Asian Museum was the earliest Russian institution on fundamental scientific research of the East. One of the most crucial moments in the creation of the Asian Museum was the 2-step purchase of its Arabic script collection. It also contained Turkic books, around 200 books in 170-something, and also included books on the Turks or Turkic books. It was the collection of the nephew of the great philosopher Rousseau, Jean-Baptiste Rousseau, who was in fact a diplomat. He served in the East in Aleppo. Indeed, he was the one who brought to the museum the precious manuscript of the Canon of Medicine by Avicenna, rewritten in the 12th century from the Middle East. This is the earliest folio that have survived to our days of the priceless work on the medicine by the great Abu Ali ibn Sina, Avicenna. Back in 1844, a list of especially valuable Eastern manuscripts was created here. This list was intended mainly for diplomats who were serving in the East. It reads, and I quote, "It is crucial to search out manuscripts in their original or true copies for the benefit of science." In 1844, all diplomats serving in the East were tasked with buying manuscripts and books in Eastern languages in the countries where they resided. This is indeed an interesting fact. It is really easy, and this order was followed. Money was granted by the Minister of Finance specifically for this purpose, and this custom was kept till 1914, in the beginning of World War I. By the end of the 19th century, the Asian Museum had turned into one of the largest world repositories of Eastern manuscripts and the main center of Russian Eastern studies. Among the scientists and people who used to work here were many famous names of global significance, such as Christian Fren and Vasily Radlov, Sergei Oldenburg and Osip Abeli, Ignatiy Krachkovsky and Vasily Bartold, Nikolai Miklohomaklai and Karl Zaleman. The collection of the Institute contains a wholly unique legacy left by Eastern poets, thinkers, scholars and philosophers whose works have played a crucial role in the development of global civilization. There are numerous folios in the Persian, Arabic and Uzbek languages which were created in Central Asia. Today we'll be showing you these priceless treasures which are directly connected to Uzbekistan. One of the ancient lists from the territory of Uzbekistan, currently held in the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts, is an example of early Khwarezmian cursive on a tree, a document dated to the 3rd century AD. It was found in the Toprak Kala settlement. Scientists have been trying to interpret the content of this document for more than a decade. In their opinion, these are remnants of the palace archive of Khwarezmian rulers from the beginning of the era. Another unique treasure of the written language is the famous archive of the Devashtich. He was the last ruler of Tajikant, a Sogdian state on the border of present-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. It has been established that the last ruler of the Sogdian state was executed by the Arabs. This is an absolute rarity for the museum. Other documents of the 8th century, according to scientists, shed light on the life of the independent state, which played a significant role in Central Asia before Arabic conquest. These documents of the Sogdian king were found during excavation works in the ruins of the mountain fortress Mukalla. Apart from this, an additional 100 or so documents were also unearthed. They were delivered at the time to Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. Then, in short, the employees of our institute started sinking their teeth into them. And it proved to be. Let's take Krachkovsky, for example. What was so special about him? He and his wife, she was also a brilliant Arabist of a very high caliber, so while studying these documents, they decoded the name of the ruler of Panjikan, the last ruler before the Arabic conquest, to be Devashtichi. The museum also contains a Quran from the 10th century, rewritten in the Ketalingar settlement of Kashkadarya Oblast, Uzbekistan. This is one of the oldest Qurans received by the fund of the Institute from the library of Syrian-born Russian diplomat Selim Nofal. The Quran was purchased by the diplomat in 1872 in the city of Shekrisaps. Already in the 15th century, Ketalingar settlement, located in an offshoot of the Zarafshan range, was an area with a high concentration of Sufis, where the mosque and burial place of the hereditary sheikhs were constructed. And it's absolutely clear that the oldest list of surahs existed in the Ketalingar settlement. The East has been famous for the most voluminous storage of ancient books for a long time, as well as for its scientific centers. Bukhara, Samarkand, Khwarezmiya and Merv had their own libraries. In the 10th century, the expansive Samanid library has already gained a decent amount of notoriety. It was later destroyed by the fire. The Samarkand library of the great Amir Timur is shrouded in legend and mystery. Unfortunately, it didn't survive to our days. In ancient Central Asian century, there existed special rows in the markets for sellers of manuscripts of various content, rewritten in a fine handwriting, artistically designed and decorated with exquisite miniatures. Aside from books which were written by famous authors of Bukhara and Samarkand, one can find here a huge amount of foreign manuscripts from Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, India and Kashgar. Bukhara, Samarkand, Khwarezmiya. These three are probably the three main centers, which I can tell you have been throughout the ages points of attraction for people keen on culture and science, and people embarking on spiritual quests. The lively trade routes crisscrossing the territory of Uzbekistan encouraged an influx of various literature in the Arabic, Persian and Turkish languages to this region. It was often the case that from here caravans with priceless, unique manuscripts that could be found in no other place left for the west via the Great Silk Road. When introducing you to these priceless folios, which are kept here in the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts in St. Petersburg, we cannot help but return to the places where these masterpieces were created, where they originated from. This is first of all the city of Bukhara, which used to be called Bukhara-i-Sharif. Through the 12 gates of the city, caravans entered and departed in a constant flow to the west and east with carpets and silks, Eastern spices, precious stones and certainly rare books. Throughout the centuries, here in Bukhara, an amazing atmosphere of scholarship, science and art has been formed. In one of the manuscripts by Uzbek classic Abdurrahman Jami, devoted to the history of Bukhara, there are these certain lines, and these same words in Nastalik are carved in the Char Minor, 4 minarets, stone monument.
Sikka kidar yasribu badhozadan, navbati oxir ba Buxorozadan. Sharif shaharlar
Allah, after Mecca and Medina, granted a seal of holiness to Bukhara.
Madinaga bergandan keyin oxiri Buxoroy Sharifga bu muhr urildi.
Indeed, history radiates from every stone here. It was there in Bukhara where in the beginning of the 20th century the expedition of the Russian Institute of Eastern Manuscript collected over 1,100 ancient handwritten books. This is the so-called Bukhara collection. It is a collection of priceless Muslim manuscripts depicting the intellectual life not only of Bukhara but of the entirety of Maveranahar. These are books on theology and history, spatiography, geography and also outstanding works of fiction and poetry from the East. This priceless manuscript here is a book of poems by Hafiz Shirazi. This divan was also acquired from the expedition at the beginning of the 20th century. Before we show you the manuscripts from the Bukhara collection, we would like to dive into the world of calligraphy, this ancient art that was always so honored in the East and was also the art of the elite.
O'sha paytda har bitta asar qo'lda ko'chirilgan.
At those times, to rewrite handwritten books, calligraphers had to learn and hone their own individual handwriting for up to 40 years. And if there were manuscripts written on the order of Emir Sohans, they were given only to skillful calligraphers who had already made a name for themselves. This is one of the sacred places of Bukhara, the architectural ensemble of Poikalon. It was here on this square where since the beginning of the 16th century the famous madrasa Miri Arab had been located. This is one of the most prestigious educational institutions in Middle Asia, the alumni of which boasted outstanding theologists and muftis, Muslim poets, miniaturists and calligraphers. Miri Arab still to this day has a school of classical calligraphy, and I invite you, together with our crew here today, to meet a remarkable person who has given up his entire life to this amazing art. Domla Abdugafur Azdog Bukhari has been teaching in Miri Arab for over 40 years. A skillful calligrapher and collector, he knows every detail there is to know about manuscripts and the history of calligraphy. I was raised in an atmosphere of reverence towards scholars. My grandfather loved inviting educated and intellectual people to our house. They used to sit around, talk, and spend their evenings together. Celebrated calligraphers were also among our more frequent visitors. This was how I gradually learned about the secrets of their art. Jawahir Asanoi, or the pearl of all crafts. This was how in the East people referred to the art of miniaturists and calligraphers. Domla Abdugafur Razak Bukhari told us all about the celebrated calligraphers of the old days and his prominent teachers. Among them, there were some truly great persons: Mir Ali Tabrizi, Mir Ali Haravi. These were the students of the world-famous Sultan Ali Mashhedi. Ismatullah Mushi also worked here in Bukhara. The next generation came into being, represented by Domla Bobobek, who created the Bukhara School of Calligraphy. Domla Abdugafur Azog Bukhari has in his possession a unique collection of samples of various writing styles. Each of them has its historical as well as artistic value. These include all handwriting samples on the thinnest of paper, Raihani, Sirs and Kufik, but more often than not, calligraphers use the Nastaliq style. For instance, the Kufik style is very difficult to master. There are no punctuation signs and the writing style is very stretched, while Nastaliq was more compact and faster for writing, so it immediately became the most acceptable for many calligraphers. In the most cases, Raihani and Yaqut were used in inscriptions or architectural monuments or the covers of manuscripts, while Nastaliq was used in the majority of cases for writing historical books and poetry. While telling us about his collection, Domla also showed us examples what he was talking about, which were created 10, 11 centuries ago. Thanks to scholars of his caliber, today we have the opportunity to see and study our heritage. This is Maghribi style. It was first given this name because it has its origins in northern Africa and Morocco. This is a sample from the 10th century, and this inscription was also made in Bukhara in the 10th century on the incredibly thin Chinese paper. This is the surah from Quran. This is a sample from the 12th century, when the now famous Samarkand paper was already in use. These surahs from the Holy Quran were written in blue paper. Instead of ink, the whites of eggs were used. Every ayah is finished with a gold sprinkling, as you can plainly see. This is the rarest sample. Only one spread from this remarkable Quran is preserved. I guard it here like the apple of my eye. They were passed down to me by my most revered teachers. Looking at this list, you start to realize that these aren't just samples of calligraphy, but genuine works of art. But it's not just a matter of price, although each of them used to be valued at hundreds of gold coins in times past. They also preserve the intelligence and sense of harmony of our ancestors. In their lifetime, the calligraphers were paid 5 gold coins for every similar piece of writing, and the great calligrapher Mir Ali Haravi was paid 50 gold coins. These are originals. This list was rewritten by Mir Ali Haravi for the Emir of Bukhara, Ubaydullah. Mir Ali Haravi also wrote more than just handwritten books. He also worked on inscriptions, including quotes from the Quran, which were included in architectural ensembles as well. In the inner yard of the complex of Miri Arab, amazing samples of his Nastaliq handwriting have been preserved. Mir Ali Haravi was the author of a famous poem, which has been a must-know for many generations of calligraphers.
40 yil, 40 sol umram, bakhat shud talaf. سری زلف خط آسان نآید بکف زمشقش دم هر که فارغ نشست چون رنگ حنا رفت خطش زده است.
I have been learning for 40 years to write like this, and it has been no easy task. Mir Ali Haravi is the undisputed, unrivaled master of Nastaliq handwriting. He was born in Herat, but most of his life lived in Bukhara. People of the city are proud that it was him who wrote the history of Madrasa Mir Arab, referring to him as the pride of all the Muslim world. Moving on from Holy Bukhara, we come back to St. Petersburg to the Institute of Eastern Manuscripts. In our program's next section, we'll introduce you to some more unique photos associated with the great Eastern thinkers, scholars and poets whose works are stored in St. Petersburg. We'll also visit Samarkand, where you can learn the technology of creating old silk paper. This has been a presentation of the treasures of Uzbekistan culture in Museums of the World project. I have been your host, Shaknoza Ganiyeva. Thank you for your attention.